The challenge. Kverik stood at the viewport of the Syraxian flagship Eternal Glory, his four violet eyes fixed on the blue-green world growing larger as they approach. Earth, the latest addition to the Galactic Confederation, and, in his estimation, the least impressive. His scaled skin rippled with iridescent patterns that reflected his thoughts, predominantly shades of dismissive amber. First Officer Zurel, what do we know of these humans and their combat traditions? Kverik asked, not turning from the viewport. Zurel, a younger Syraxian whose scales had not yet developed the deep burgundy of maturity, approached with a data tablet. They have thousands of fighting styles, Grandmaster, most developed in isolation before their global unification. None evolved with our advantages in mind. Kverik made a sound that approximated a chuckle. Of course not. How could they? Their species has barely left their cradle. 2 arms, 2 legs, fragile bones, slow reflexes, and a lifespan so brief they're practically mayflies. They are resourceful, Zurel offered cautiously. Being resourceful is the consolation prize of the physically inferior, Kverik replied. I've studied their history. They've spent more time fighting each other than looking to the stars. Their combat traditions are stagnant, ritualistic, preservation rather than evolution. As Grand Master of the Syraxian combat arts, Kverik had remained undefeated for 3 centuries. He had faced champions from 87 worlds, creatures with natural weapons that would make humans tremble, poisonous appendages, regenerating limbs, exoskeletons that could withstand plasma fire. He had defeated them all through the perfect union of Syraxian physical superiority and the combat philosophy he had spent centuries refining. The diplomatic team awaits your guidance on the cultural exchange, Grandmaster, Zurel said, interrupting Kverik's thoughts. Yes, the demonstration. Kverik turned from the viewport, his full 9 feet of height imposing even among his own kind. We will show them the 7th form. It should be educational for them. The landing platform at the United Earth Diplomatic Center in Singapore gleamed in the morning sunlight as the Syraxian delegation disembarked. Earth officials lined the walkway, their faces a mixture of awe and apprehension as Kverik strode past them. He wore ceremonial battle garb, deep crimson armor made from composite materials unknown to human science, adorned with symbols representing his countless victories. Ambassador Helena Dias stepped forward. Grand Master Kverik, on behalf of United Earth, welcome to our world. We are honored by your presence at this historic cultural exchange. Kverik inclined his head slightly. The honor is mutual, Ambassador. The Syraxian Empire values all members of the Confederation, regardless of their development stage. If Dias noticed the condescension in his tone, she gave no indication. We've prepared demonstrations of Earth's most significant martial traditions. Afterward, we hope you'll share some of your own combat arts with us. Indeed, Kverik replied. Learning occurs through observation of superiority. The delegation moved to a massive indoor arena constructed specifically for the exchange. Thousands of spectators filled the stands. Diplomats, military officials, martial arts masters from Earth's various traditions, and civilians lucky enough to secure tickets to this historic event. Kverik and the other Syraxians were led to a special seating area. Below them, the demonstration floor was divided into sections, each representing a different Earth combat tradition. For the next 2 hours, Kverik watched with decreasing interest as humans demonstrated their fighting styles. Primitive, he whispered to Zurel. They compensate for weakness with complexity. Notice how they rely on leverage and momentum rather than direct force, a necessity of their limitations. Zurel nodded, though Kverik noticed his aide seemed more impressed than he should be. The variety is remarkable, Grandmaster. Variety without advancement is merely disorganization, Kverik replied. Ambassador Dias approached their seating area. Grandmaster, we've saved our most unique demonstration for last. This practitioner represents no formal school, but has developed her own synthesis of several traditions. We thought you might find her approach interesting. Kverik's upper eyes blinked in sequence, a sign of mild curiosity. Very well. The arena lights dimmed except for a single spotlight on the central platform. A human female walked into the light. She was unremarkable by human standards, perhaps in her mid-30s, of average height, with features suggesting mixed Asian and African ancestry. She wore simple black clothing with no insignia or rank markings. Most notably, she carried no weapon. "This is Maya Chen." The announcer's voice echoed through the arena. "Independent martial arts researcher and practitioner." Kverik leaned forward slightly. At least this would be brief. Maya began to move. At first, her movements seemed simple, basic forms that Kverik recognized from several of the earlier demonstrations. Then something changed. Her movements accelerated, blending styles in ways that seemed impossible. She incorporated techniques from disparate traditions, transitions that shouldn't work flowing seamlessly together. For the first time since arriving on Earth, Kverik felt something unexpected, genuine interest. "Zeril," he said quietly, "what is her combat record?" Zeril consulted his tablet. "Unknown, Grandmaster. She has no formal competitive history. Her background lists extensive travel and study, but no official standings or titles." The demonstration continued for 5 minutes. As Maya finished, the audience applauded politely, but Kverik noticed many of the human martial arts masters looked confused or even dismissive. They didn't understand what they were seeing. Kverik wasn't certain he did either. As Maya bowed and turned to leave the platform, Kverik made a decision that would alter the course of human-Seraxian relations. "Wait," his voice carried across the arena without need for amplification. The audience fell silent as Kverik stood. "I wish to test this human's abilities personally." Ambassador Dias hurried to his side, alarm evident in her expression. "Grandmaster, that wasn't part of the scheduled exchange. Ms. Chen isn't a designated representative." "I accept." Maya's voice, calm and clear, interrupted the ambassador. Kverik's scales rippled with pleasure. "Excellent." "Grandmaster," Zeril whispered urgently, "the diplomatic protocols are secondary to this opportunity," Kverik finished. He removed his ceremonial outer armor, leaving only the flexible protective layer beneath. When one discovers something unexpected, Zeril, one investigates. The arena buzzed with excited conversation as Kverik made his way to the platform. Up close, the human woman was even less impressive, barely reaching his chest, with none of the natural weapons or defenses his species possessed. "I will restrain my strength," Kverik announced loudly enough for the diplomatic section to hear. "This is an exchange, not combat." Maya simply nodded, her expression revealing nothing. "Begin when ready," Kverik said, assuming the first position of the Seraxian 7th form, a stance that had initiated the defeat of champions across the galaxy. Maya didn't move. She simply stood, hands loosely at her sides, watching him. Kverik felt a flicker of irritation. He moved forward with deliberate slowness, perhaps 1/4 of his natural speed, and extended his right arm in a strike that would gently connect with her shoulder. A greeting in combat terms. His hand passed through empty air. Maya had shifted, not backward or to the side as expected, but somehow inside his guard, closer to him. Before Kverik could process this, he felt a light tap on his chest, directly over his primary heart. He blinked all 4 eyes simultaneously, the Seraxian equivalent of shock. The human had touched him. Had she been armed or using full force, she might have landed a killing blow. Kverik stepped back and reassessed. The human remained calm, waiting. He moved again, faster this time, using a combination that would test her reactions from multiple angles. Maya moved like water around stone. Each strike met empty air as she seemed to anticipate his movements, responding not to his actions, but to his intentions. Kverik felt another tap, this time at the base of his throat near his secondary breathing passage. The audience was silent now, tension building as the significance of what they were witnessing became apparent. Kverik, the undefeated grandmaster of the Syraxian combat arts, was failing to land a single touch on a human with no formal standing. Kverik's scales flushed deep purple, a sign of intense focus. He abandoned the pretense of restraint and moved at full speed, his forearms becoming blurs as he executed the most advanced sequence of the seventh form. Maya's response defied everything Kverik understood about human capabilities. She didn't block or evade individual strikes. She simply wasn't where the strikes were aimed. Her movements appeared minimal, efficient beyond anything he had seen in 3 centuries of combat. When she finally counterattacked, it wasn't with a strike or conventional technique. Maya simply placed her palm against Kverik's central mass and pushed, a gentle, almost casual motion that nevertheless sent him stumbling back several steps. The arena erupted in gasps. Kverik steadied himself, his mind racing. How had she generated such force? Her mass was a fraction of his. The physics made no sense unless... "You're using my own energy against me," he said, low enough that only she could hear. Maya inclined her head slightly. "You noticed." It was the first time she had spoken since accepting his challenge. "Impossible," Kverik muttered. "No human has the reaction speed to redirect a Syraxian's force." "I'm not reacting to your movements," Maya replied. "I'm reading your intention before you move." Kverik's scales rippled with disbelief. "You can't read Syraxian neural patterns." "I don't need to." For the first time, Maya smiled. "Your body tells me everything before you strike." This was unprecedented. Kverik had faced telepathic species before, but this was different. This human was somehow perceiving subtle physiological cues that even he wasn't fully conscious of. Kverik raised his hand, signaling a pause. The arena held its collective breath. "I propose we continue this exchange in a more formal capacity," he announced. "A true demonstration match, tomorrow, with appropriate preparations." Maya considered for a moment. What would be the purpose? An unexpected question. Kverik found himself answering honestly, "To understand." Maya nodded. "Then I accept." As they left the platform, Kverik noticed the expressions of the human officials, a mixture of alarm and pride. They hadn't known what their own kind was capable of. Perhaps, Kverik admitted to himself, neither had he. That night, in his quarters aboard the Eternal Glory, Kverik reviewed every scrap of information available on Maya Chen. There wasn't much. Born in Toronto to a Chinese-Canadian father and a Nigerian mother. No formal competition record. Extensive travel throughout Earth studying various combat traditions. No published works, no school, no students. "She's deliberately maintained a low profile," Kverik told Zerl. "The question is why." "Perhaps she doesn't seek recognition," Zerl suggested. "Everyone seeks recognition." Kverik dismissed the idea. "She's hiding something." He spent hours analyzing the recording of their brief exchange. Each time he watched, he saw new details, micro-adjustments in her posture that occurred milliseconds before his own movements, shifts in weight distribution that shouldn't provide the stability they did, efficiency of motion that seemed to bend the laws of physics. As Earth's sun began to rise, Kverik made a decision that would have been unthinkable a day earlier. For the upcoming demonstration, he would not hold back. He would use the full extent of his abilities, including techniques he had developed but never needed to use in actual combat. For the first time in 3 centuries, Kverik, Grand Master of the Syraxian combat arts, was preparing to fight at his absolute limit. Against a human. Understanding. The diplomatic center's arena was filled beyond capacity the next day. What had begun as a cultural exchange had become the most significant event in human-alien relations since first contact. The stakes had escalated overnight. No longer just a demonstration, but a test of species capability. Syraxian High Command had sent an urgent communique to Kverik. This event now has strategic implications. Performance reflects on Empire. Kverik understood the subtext. He was no longer fighting for personal honor, but representing Syraxian martial supremacy. 3 centuries of victory weighed on his shoulders as he entered the arena floor. The human, Maya Chen, waited at the center. She wore the same simple black clothing as before, still carried no weapon. Her calm demeanor remained unchanged despite the charged atmosphere. Ambassador Diaz approached with a worried expression. "Grandmaster, we've prepared safety protocols. Medical teams are standing by." "They won't be necessary," Kiveric stated. "With respect, Syraxian physiology is substantially more durable than human. We must consider." "I was referring to your medical teams," Kiveric clarified. "The human won't harm me." Diaz's expression flickered between offense and concern. "Nevertheless, we've established signal gestures to halt the demonstration if needed." Kiveric nodded impatiently and moved toward the center platform where Maya waited. The audience fell silent as they faced each other. "Before we begin," Maya said quietly, "I want to clarify something. What are you seeking from this encounter?" An unusual question before combat. Kiveric considered his answer carefully. "Truth," he finally replied. Maya nodded as if he had confirmed something. "Then we should proceed without artificial limitations." Kiveric's scales rippled with surprise. "You wish me to use my full capabilities. I could seriously injure you." "Only if you can connect," Maya replied with the slightest smile. "And you won't." For the first time in centuries, Kiveric felt the unfamiliar sensation of being challenged, not just physically, but intellectually. This human was suggesting something that should be impossible. The signal to begin sounded. Kiveric didn't hold back. He moved at full Syraxian combat speed, nearly 3 times faster than human reflex capability. His forearms executed a perfect Cantrix pattern, a technique that created an inescapable net of strikes from 12 different angles simultaneously. Maya wasn't there. She had shifted, not with superhuman speed, but with perfect timing and minimal movement. Kiveric's momentum carried him past where she had been. As he pivoted to track her, he felt a light touch at the base of his spine. Had this been actual combat, she could have severed his tertiary nerve cluster. The audience gasped. Kiveric's scales flushed deep crimson, not with embarrassment, but with intense focus. He launched into his most advanced sequence, one that had defeated a Felorian battle master whose species possessed precognitive abilities. Maya responded with movements Kiveric couldn't categorize. She wasn't using any recognizable human combat style. Her techniques seemed to morph and adapt with each passing second, borrowing elements from various traditions, but combining them in ways that transcended their origins. For 10 minutes, they moved across the platform in a dance of attack and evasion. Kiveric never once made contact. Maya touched him 17 times. Each a potential killing blow had this been actual combat. Kiveric finally paused, breathing heavily. Maya stood calmly, barely showing signs of exertion. "How?" The question escaped him before he could contain it. "You're fighting as you've been taught," Maya replied. "I'm fighting as I've learned." "Explain." Kiveric's scientific curiosity overrode his pride. "Your techniques are perfect," Maya said. "Refined over centuries, optimized for your physiology, tested against countless opponents, but that perfection has become a limitation." Kiveric's 4 eyes blinked in sequence, confusion. "Perfection cannot be a limitation. It can when it becomes predictable," Maya explained. "Your movements follow optimal biomechanical patterns for a Syraxian. Each technique flows naturally into specific follow-ups. Your combat style is a language, and I've learned to read it." Kiveric considered this. "You've studied Syraxian combat forms." "That's not possible. Our techniques are closely guarded." "I haven't studied Syraxians specifically," Maya said. "I've studied principles, physics, biology, psychology, the underlying patterns that govern all combat, regardless of species." For the first time, Kiveric began to understand. "You're not a martial artist. You're a martial theorist." Maya nodded. "I've spent my life studying how living beings fight, not to master any particular style, but to understand the fundamental truth behind all of them. Resume, Kiveric said, moving back into position. But this time, he did something he hadn't done in centuries. He abandoned formal technique. He attacked with deliberate awkwardness, violating the biomechanical efficiency that had been drilled into him since youth. His movements became unpredictable, even to himself. For the first time, Maya seemed surprised. She adapted quickly, but not instantly. Kiveric's hand brushed her shoulder. Not a solid contact, but closer than he'd come before. Interesting approach, Maya acknowledged. Breaking your own patterns. The audience was watching in stunned silence as the alien Grandmaster deliberately fought with less than optimal technique. To most observers, it made no sense. To Kiveric and Maya, it was a profound conversation without words. Kiveric pressed his advantage of unpredictability, but Maya's adaptability proved superior. She adjusted to his new approach within minutes, anticipating even his deliberately chaotic movements. After 20 minutes of continuous exchange, Kiveric stopped. Not from physical exhaustion. Suraxians could fight for hours without tiring, but from mental revelation. I understand now, he said. Maya lowered her hands. What do you understand? Your species' advantage, Kiveric replied. Humans don't live long enough to perfect any single approach, so you've evolved the ability to synthesize and adapt rapidly. You've turned your greatest weakness into your greatest strength. Maya nodded. We call it innovation. Necessity driving invention. Kiveric's scales shifted to a shade of blue that no human had seen before, the Suraxian color of profound realization. Your combat ability isn't superior, Kiveric continued, thinking aloud. Your adaptability is. If we fought 10 times using the same techniques, you would anticipate everything by the third match. But if I continuously evolved my approach, then we would have a true exchange. Maya finished. Neither of us with a permanent advantage. Kiveric did something unprecedented. He extended all 4 hands, palms up, the Suraxian gesture of equal standing. I have lived 3 of your lifetimes, he said. In that time, I perfected a single combat system. You have lived barely 4 decades, yet you've integrated principles from thousands of traditions into something entirely new. Different evolutionary paths to different kinds of excellence. The significance of this moment was lost on most of the audience, but the Suraxian delegation had gone completely still. Their Grandmaster was acknowledging the human as an equal. The demonstration is complete, Kiveric announced formally. As they left the platform, Ambassador Dias hurried over, her expression a mixture of relief and concern. That was unexpected, she said diplomatically. It was enlightening, Kiveric corrected. Ambassador, I wish to propose a modification to our cultural exchange program. Rather than simple demonstrations, I suggest a true exchange of knowledge. What do you mean exactly? I wish to learn from your Ms. Chen, Kiveric said, and perhaps, if she is willing, to teach her what I know as well. Maya, who had been listening quietly, spoke up. I would welcome that, Grand Master. Dias looked between them, recognizing that something profound had shifted. I'll make the necessary arrangements. Later that evening, aboard the Eternal Glory, Zerl found Kiveric in his meditation chamber. The High Command is concerned about today's demonstration, Zerl said carefully. They're requesting an explanation. Kiveric's scales had settled into a calm, reflective indigo. What did you observe today, Zerl? The younger Suraxian hesitated. I saw you unable to defeat a human. No, Kiveric corrected. You saw me unable to defeat a particular approach to combat. An approach that I can now learn from. The diplomatic corps is worried this will diminish Suraxian's standing in the Confederation. Kiveric turned all 4 eyes on his aide. Tell me, Zerl, in 3 centuries of victory, how much have I truly learned? Zerl didn't answer. Today, I learned more in 30 minutes than in my last 100 years of triumph. Kiveric continued. The humans have something valuable to teach us, not despite their short lives, but because of them. What will you tell High Command? Kverik moved to the viewport, looking down at the blue-green world below. The truth. That we have encountered a species that compensates for physical limitations with exceptional adaptability and innovation. A species that doesn't perfect a single path, but explores countless possibilities simultaneously. And what does that mean for the Syraxian Empire? It means, Kverik said thoughtfully, that we have found not just another member world of the Confederation, but a truly valuable ally. One that sees possibilities we might miss in our pursuit of perfection. The next morning, Maya Chen arrived aboard the Syraxian flagship, the first human to be invited as an honored guest rather than a diplomatic necessity. Kverik met her in the ship's central training chamber, where senior Syraxian combat instructors had gathered to observe. Before we begin, Kverik said, I have a question that has troubled me since yesterday. With your abilities, you could have risen to prominence among your kind. Why did you choose obscurity? Maya considered the question. For the same reason you sought out champions across 87 worlds. To learn, not to prove. Kverik's scales rippled with appreciation. Then let us learn together. As they moved to the center of the training floor, Kverik realized that in 3 centuries of combat, this was the first time he approached an exchange not seeking to demonstrate superiority, but seeking growth. News of their collaboration spread quickly through diplomatic channels. Within days, other species in the Confederation began requesting similar exchanges with humans, not just in combat arts, but in science, art, governance, and philosophy. The event that began as a routine cultural demonstration became known as the paradigm shift. In the decades that followed, humanity's unique approach to problem-solving and adaptation became their most valuable contribution to interstellar society. Kverik eventually returned to Syraxis, bringing with him not trophies of victory, but something far more valuable. New ideas that revitalized combat traditions that had remained essentially unchanged for millennia. In his personal quarters, alongside the symbols of his countless victories, Kverik placed a simple black cloth, a gift from Maya. When younger Syraxians asked about its significance, Kverik would say only, "It reminds me that perfection without growth becomes stagnation." Maya Chen established what became known as the Synthesis Academy, where instructors from dozens of species taught not just their traditional combat forms, but the principles behind them. Kverik returned to Earth annually to serve as a guest instructor. During one such visit, years later, Kverik found Maya watching young students, humans, Syraxians, and 6 other species, training together. "Did you know this would happen?" he asked her. "When you accepted my challenge that first day?" Maya smiled. "I hoped for understanding. Everything else has been a wonderful surprise." Kverik's scales shifted to a deep, satisfied gold. "The first time we met, I thought I was facing a primitive opponent. I didn't realize I was meeting my greatest teacher." "We taught each other," Maya corrected. "That's the human way. We never stop learning, because we never have time to perfect anything." "Perhaps perfection isn't the goal after all," Kverik mused. "What is then?" Maya asked. Kverik watched the diverse students moving through forms that blended traditions spanning the galaxy, a continuously evolving synthesis that would have been unthinkable to him before meeting Maya. "Growth," he answered. "Endless growth."